solve the problem. It's to enforce the law. It's to bring back the Remain in Mexico policy. And it's to finish the wall. But Joe Biden won't let him do any of this. In the president's request for additional money, I will say no money or any money that needs to be spent has to be spent to stop the flow of illegal immigrants, not to allow them to come through even faster. Republicans in the House and the Senate are committed to protecting the homeland, whether or not the President of the United States is willing to do it, and what we saw is the President is not. Now I'd like to turn to Senator Cornyn.
Thanks, Dr. Barrasso, Senator Barrasso, for hosting this event. And I want to thank my colleagues for coming down to the Rio Grande Valley. This is, I think, about the seventh trip Senator Cruz and I have hosted for our colleagues. I think what they learn is that it's a little more complex than meets the eye. Not only are there millions of jobs supported by binational trade with Mexico, it's an important part of our economy in the United States. But the problem is President Biden has outsourced our immigration policy to criminal organizations. I say that because the 8 million who have come across the border continue to do that in record numbers because they know they're going to be able to make it into the interior of the United States. What the Border Patrol tells us, and they are the experts, they say there's no consequences associated with illegal entry in the United States. And these criminal organizations that smuggle people and drugs are smart. They know how to exploit our system. They know how to exploit our broken asylum system where people can travel through safe third countries and then claim a credible fear of persecution and be released into the interior of the United States. And then there are the tens of thousands of people that the Biden administration has simply released as a border management policy. In other words, they've created a turnstile by which people can go into the interior of the United States and stay probably for the rest of their lives, even though they don't make a claim of asylum. That's what they call humanitarian parole. But it's being abused. It's supposed to be used on an individual case-by-case basis, not to release mass numbers of people into the interior. And then, of course, as Dr. Barrasso said, the point is they don't really know who these people are. They certainly don't know who the gotaways are. More than 1.5 million, maybe approaching 2 million people who have been detected on cameras and other sensors, but who've evaded Border Patrol. You got to wonder whether they have a good reason for running away from law enforcement. Are they carrying drugs like the fentanyl that took the lives of 71,000 Americans last year alone, the leading cause of death among young people 18 to 45? We know where it comes from, and it comes across the U.S. border into the United States from Mexico. So, as I said, these criminal organizations are very smart. They flood the zone with people, taking many of the Border Patrol agents off the front lines because they have to do administrative duties and process these migrants so they can then be released. But they're not there to stop the drugs and stop the potential criminals and terrorists who are coming across the border. What's happened on October the 7th in Israel is a reminder that terrorist organizations can strike at any time. And while we know on September the 11th, 2001, 19 terrorists killed 3,000 Americans, we know that there have been hundreds or more of people on the terrorist watch list that have been detected at the border, but we don't know how many more, and the Biden administration can't tell you, made it their way safely into the interior of the United States. In the Rio Grande Valley, we were told that recently that migrants from China, Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Nigeria, and other countries across the globe came to the border and were released by the Biden administration in the United States. This is dangerous, not only to Americans here living in the heartland of the United States, but also to the migrants themselves who are abused by the cartels, who care nothing about them as human beings and who view them merely as a commodity. So appreciate our colleagues coming back to the border with Senator Cruz and myself, and being able to come talk about what they saw and what they learned in a way that hopefully will help us enact policies that will protect the United States of America. Senator Cruz.
For the past decade, John Cornyn and I have regularly taken our colleagues down to the southern border because you can't really understand what's happening there until you see it firsthand with your own eyes. We just got back from the border Thursday and Friday of last week. We flew out Thursday afternoon. We arrived in the Rio Grande Valley Thursday night. And the first thing five senators did is we went to the midnight muster of the Border Patrol agents. And we went there principally to tell those agents thank you. Those men and women, they risk their lives every night dealing with very dangerous human traffickers, drug traffickers, and they are frustrated beyond belief. They're frustrated because they risk their lives catching dangerous people and they turn around and their political superiors just let them go. And the next day they go back and catch the same people all over again. So we wanted to say thank you to them. We also wanted to listen to them. We sat there and just spent some time asking, what do we need to know? One of the things they told us about is the Biden administration just issued new guidance in the past year on pursuit of illegal aliens who are fleeing. And as they said, really what it should be called is guidance on non-pursuit. In that the Biden administration has prohibited Border Patrol agents from chasing any traffickers who are fleeing if there's anything about the flight that could endanger human safety. What does that mean? That means, for example, if there are more people in a vehicle than there are seatbelts, the Border Patrol is not allowed to pursue. And they said regularly they'll be coming up on a car filled with illegal immigrants, and the traffickers will tell everyone, sit up, so it's obvious there are 4 people in the back seat or 5 people in the back seat and only 3 seatbelts. Under the Biden administration's rules, they have to discontinue the pursuit and say, go on, keep carrying your fentanyl, keep trafficking people because we're not going to pursue you. They said now routinely, as soon as they see a Border Patrol agent trying to pull them over, they run a stop sign, they run a red light, they violate a traffic law. That, of course, endangers people's safety, but they know under the new guidance, the instant they run a stop sign, the Border Patrol is ordered to say, nope, never mind, we can't pursue you. This is an administration that doesn't want to secure the border. They want this crisis. Those 8 million people, the only thing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Senate Democrats want is 8 million to become 10, to become 12, to become 20 million. After midnight muster, we went out on midnight patrol with the Border Patrol agents. This is something I've done many times. Every time you're out on midnight patrol, within minutes you encounter groups of illegal aliens. I want to remind y'all, this is an experienced group of Capitol Hill reporters. You know that Karine Jean-Pierre stood at the White House podium and said, people are not just walking across the border, it's simply not happening. Now, there's a technical legal term for what she was saying there. That's called a lie. It's not an opinion, it's not one side said or the other side said, it's a flat-out lie. As I said in response at the time, Karine, you are welcome to come with us anytime you like. Pick any hour of the day, we'll go out for an hour, and I promise you we'll encounter a group of illegal aliens. But you know why she lies? Because she's counting on the reporters not to write a story. Today, the spokesperson for the President of the United States lied to the American people standing in the White House with a White House seal and did it at the direction of the President of the United States. The group we encountered is about 20 or 25 people. It's mostly women and children. And we spent about a half hour talking with that group, asking them questions. At first, they were apprehensive, but we asked them, we said, how many of y'all believe you're going to be able to stay? Every one of them, absolutely. Oh, we know once we get here, we can stay. You want to know why there's a crisis? Because every one of them knows once they get here, Joe Biden will let them go. This group, I wish every one of you in this room had been there to see this group. There was one little girl, she was 13 years old. She was traveling as an unaccompanied minor. She had no family with her at all. We asked her, where are you going? She said she's going to see her tío. Tío is Spanish for uncle. Another little boy there was 15. Another girl was 16. They were unaccompanied as well. They were also going to see their tios. There were lots of tios that they were heading to. We asked the 13-year-old, does your tio know you're coming? No, haven't spoken to him. I just have a number of some man I'm supposed to call. There was a reporter who was with us from Fox News who said, here, do you want to use my cell phone? Do you want to call your tio right now? And she said, no, no. It was obvious this was not her uncle she was calling. The most disturbing, John Barrasso referenced. There was a 10-year-old girl with a grown man who was about 35 years old. He claimed to be her father. This girl was terrified. He had his arm around her, but it wasn't a fatherly hug. It was more holding her in place. We asked her about her mother, and she just looked terrified at the dad. And he answered, oh, no, she stayed back. We know, under the Trump administration, when they DNA tested grown men with children, about 30% of them were not related to the kids. That's because you get preferential treatment if you arrive as a family unit. 30%. What did Joe Biden do when he came into office? One of the very first things he did was end the DNA testing. I have to tell you, standing there that night with those Border Patrol agents, it was sick watching that little girl. That man was not her father. And there was nothing the agents could do. The cartels are literally renting children to grown men. And we were looking at children that were in all likelihood in the process of being sex trafficked. Those teenage girls faced a high likelihood of being headed into forced prostitution. What is happening is horrific. It is cruel. It is inhumane. I want to encourage every reporter here, go down and see for yourself. Go look in the eyes of a little girl. We asked the kids, how many of y'all faced violence and abuse on the trip? Every one of them, they looked down, they were horrified. Some of y'all may remember I asked Alejandro Mayorkas about the colored wristbands. I put up a poster in the Senate Judiciary Committee. He said he had no idea what they were. He didn't know. That answer shocked me, because just about every illegal alien wears those colored wristbands. They're color-coded for how many thousands of dollars they owe the cartels. You can find them along the banks of the Rio Grande. I reached down and picked up several while I was there. This administration doesn't care, and those wristbands are modern-day leg irons. It is utterly inhumane and unspeakable what Joe Biden and the Democrats are allowing to happen, subjecting children to modern-day slavery. This has got to end.
Well, thank you all for being here today, and I want to thank Senator Cornyn and Senator Cruz for arranging our visit to the border. It was actually my fourth time being down there. I also visited as governor of the state of Nebraska. And I also thank the Customs and Border Protection men and women who, as Senator Cruz was saying, put their lives on the line for us. They worked very, very hard under very trying circumstances, and I want them to know how grateful we are for their service and for them hosting us last week. As has already been described, we have a humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border. And it is created by Joe Biden's failed and inept policies. That's what we heard down there. And when we talked to Customs and Border Patrol people, you know what they told us? The first best thing you can do, change the policies. Remain in Mexico, first safe country, whatever you want to call it. It's what everybody else does. It was referenced earlier, there has to be consequences. If you do that, they said, you'll see the flood of people stopping to come here. Last month, 269,735 encounters by Customs and Border Protection personnel on that southern border. A new record. 2.5 million last year, 8 million since Joe Biden's been president. Put that in perspective. Those 8 million encounters are more than all the encounters in the Trump and Obama administration combined in just 3 years. Senator Cruz did a great job of talking about the human cost of this. The Customs and Border Patrol people told us last year 854 people died crossing that river or once they got into the interior of our country. 2,300 since Joe Biden has been president, over 2,300. Joe Biden is responsible for those deaths. His failed policy has created this crisis at our border that is leading to those people dying when they come here. He is responsible. He has the ability to end this. And he chooses to do nothing. And then we talked about the national security aspect. Last month, 18 people on the terrorist watch list. 172 people all of last year. Again, put this in perspective, in years past, that number was single digits. We are opening ourselves up for a terrorist attack. Joe Biden has created this crisis. If he will not act, Congress must act. That's why we've introduced a variety of different pieces of legislation to address the issues of the southern border. When I was appointed senator, I told the people of Nebraska, I will work to secure our southern border. I'm working to keep that promise. But the single biggest thing we can do right now, the president has the power to do, which is change the policy. Go back to remain in Mexico, and you would have consequences for coming here illegally, and you would end the waves of people coming here. This must end. With that, I'll turn it back over to Senator Barrasso.
Questions?
There are several future funding battles coming up on the appropriations front, the government funding front. I know they're separate, but the 17th deadline might be CR. Do you guys envision a way to include border provisions in that? I know it's been discussed. I mean, where do those negotiations stand?
That's exactly right. For us, it is critical that any of those negotiations include the things that we're talking about in terms of policy and funding related to the border. The president's supplemental package has a number of things in it related to the border. They seem to be focused on making it easier to process people into the country faster, to make those numbers go up at a faster rate. We're going to do everything we can to block all of that. As I said in the statement, what they want is money to make people come in easier. We want anything that's going to be spent money-wise to stop the flow. Now, when we talk to Border Patrol, they say what we need is the change in the policy, the enforcing of the law. The single most thing isn't going to require more money. It's to bring back the Remain in Mexico policy. We even met with one of the mayor from one of the towns in Mexico who's worked it. He said that that's worked better than what we have now. And he is somebody that lives on the border, mayor of the border, on the Mexican side. But we had lunch with him as we were there. So no matter what the president wants to put together in this package, we want to make sure that border control is part of it from the standpoint of actually dealing with this problem that the president has allowed and welcomed.
And just one follow-up on the supplemental package, because over on the House side, they're currently decoupling it, moving forward on Israel, not on Ukraine. Is that the right approach?
They're also talking about cutting back on the funding, paying for this by cutting back the funding from the IRS and what the Democrats had passed on a single line vote. You know, that's all going to be part of the discussion. What I'm saying is, for the larger package that you've asked about, border control must be part of it. I don't know if anybody else wants to. Go ahead.
You talk a lot about policy, and some of that policy, like Remain in Mexico, probably not going to fly with the Biden administration. But have you had any conversations with either Democrats or the administration about policies that you could compromise on to make this a little bit easier?
Democrats can't look and hear these stories without realizing what a disaster this administration has brought onto this country. They know it, specifically the Democrats from border states, but others that looked at this situation. And now, when did the president start paying any attention to this? when the mayors of New York and Chicago said it is destroying their cities. And the numbers there are very small compared to this 8 million. So the attention has to be to stop the problem, to stop the inflow. Well, the president is looking for money to give it to sanctuary cities so they can build housing. The president wants money to go for a welcome wagon. We're going to completely oppose all of those sorts of things. So we're always looking for solutions. The solutions that we have are actually to a major problem that the president has brought on. And I'm not in any way interested in funding sanctuary cities.
When we were down there, we asked the Border Patrol agents, we said, how many Democrats come down to do this? And they laughed. They said, oh, Democrats don't do this. A couple of Democrats have been to the border. They don't go on midnight patrols. They don't go actually encounter the illegal immigrants. We now know Joe Biden went to the border once. He went to El Paso. And he instructed his advance team, clean all the illegal immigrants out. He said, according to the White House, said he did not encounter a single illegal immigrant when he was there. He only went to a bridge, he met with government officials, and he left. That's deliberate. Look, you can't see what's happening and defend it. The last time we were down there, I had a reporter ask me, said, well, aren't the Democrat policies on immigration much more humane and compassionate? I just started laughing. I said, you know who doesn't believe that anymore? The Democrats. Where's Joe Biden? Where's Kamala Harris? Where's a Democrat senator? Where's Chuck Schumer? If this was humane and compassionate, they'd be holding press conferences down at the border. Look how humane and compassionate we are. You can no longer see the human suffering. We had the sheriff of Brooks County bring a binder just with photographs of dead bodies that he finds day after day after day of migrants who died crossing into this country. You can't defend the Biden body bags anymore. So the entire Democrat approach is hide from it, and they're frankly counting on the media. They're counting on the media not to tell the American people what's happening because they have no defense. You know, you asked a minute ago about the supplemental. Understand the White House's strategy here because it's an utter joke. The funding that they call, quote, border security is not designed to reduce even one illegal immigrant. It's not designed to stop even 1 pound of fentanyl. What it is designed to do is accelerate this process. The Biden administration is asking for more money to process illegal immigrants faster. More planes and more buses to send more illegal immigrants to New York City and Washington, D.C. and Chicago and every city in America. They don't want to stop it. And understand, Joe Biden could prevent this tomorrow. When you ask the Border Patrol agents, how do we fix this? They say, look, we don't need more money. We need policy. And here's the policy we need. When we catch someone, follow the law and deport them. And if you do that, the numbers plummet. Right now, when they catch someone, they let them go. And that person gets on their phone, gets on social media, tells all their friends back home, hey, if you come here, you get to stay. That question, it's one question. What happens when someone's apprehended? Do they get sent home or do they stay here? As long as Joe Biden insists the answer is they stay here, that number will keep going up. Children will keep being sexually abused. Women will continue to be raped, and people will continue to die of fentanyl drug overdoses. The Democrats can't defend that. That's why they don't go, because they can't answer these questions, and they bear responsibility. You know, the Border Patrol agents, we were asking the kids these questions. One of the things they said to me is they said, you know, the agents have stopped asking because they have families. They go home to their kids, and they can't stand the fact that they were just with a bunch of kids who were violently raped by human traffickers. That's happening today. It happened yesterday. It happened the day before. And it will continue happening as long as Joe Biden and the Senate Democrats want it to happen. And it's utterly indefensible.
Three of us have we have the Israeli ambassador. I know we have. So,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.